If it weren't already bad enough, the Kavanaugh hearings have now divided voters even more along party lines.
Jon Keller sits down with two political observers on the impact it could have on midterm races here in Massachusetts.
Well, good morning. We have two great, sharp political observers joining us this morning. Too bad there's nothing going on in politics, but we'll do the best we can with our guests this morning. On the left of your screen, Joanna Weiss, editor of Northeastern University's Experience magazine, a digital magazine that examines the power of experience. Welcome, Joanna.
Thank you.
And you'll recognize Matt Murphy, ace reporter and analyst for the State House News Service. Good to see you, Matt.
Thanks for having me, John.
So after this Kavanaugh debacle, women, I think it's safe to say, are angrier than ever at the Republican Party. But Republicans are now angrier than ever at the Democrats, if it's possible to be angrier than they have been. When it comes to driving voter turnout here in Massachusetts on November 6th, give me your best guess. What's the potential impact on our races here?
Look, after watching these 9 hours almost of hearings, I think both sides, the base and the sort of core group of both sides of the aisle, are super energized. I mean, it was really, it was shocking and sad to watch this kind of devolve from what felt like a hearing attempting to be fair into just a bitter partisan battle. So how does that affect Jeff Deal, who is running against Elizabeth Warren on the Trump supporter side, and
former co-chairman of the Trump campaign.
Right. Does this energize his base a little bit more than we might have expected before?
Yeah.
And then how does this affect the gubernatorial race? We've got Jay Gonzalez, the Democrat, fighting an uphill battle against a popular, even among Democrats, or especially among Democrats, Republican Charlie Baker. Does this energize Democrats to actually look at Charlie Baker another way?
One scenario, Matt, is that, this is Massachusetts after all, that Democrat-leaning voters or even independents, more moderate independents, who, disgusted by the spectacle, go charging to the polls in record numbers or something approaching it to send a message that maybe involves voting for Elizabeth Warren. And while in there, they decide to make it a party line message. Is that plausible?
Yeah, I think it's totally plausible. You saw this week, especially in the gubernatorial race. I mean, I think Elizabeth Warren and Jeff Deal were sort of in their positions, and that didn't change very much. With Baker, he has been calling for an investigation for several weeks now. It took him a couple times this past week, but he eventually got to the point where he said, I believe Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. He didn't say that should be disqualifying, though. He again said that, this should be further investigated by the FBI or other law enforcement. And that's going to play into Jay Gonzalez's whole narrative that he's not stepping up, he's not leading. He didn't go to the Women's March. He didn't go to the Science March. But if you look at the polls, none of those arguments have really moved the needle very much. The governor is still polling very well among Democrats and independents, along with Republicans. And if you saw the most recent poll that Suffolk did, or Mass Inc., excuse me, with WBUR,
right,
a majority of voters, or more voters than not, think that the governor sides with Democrats more than he sides with Republicans. So it's been a difficult argument for Democrats to get to stick.
Yeah, I think there are two things happening. One is that Charlie Baker, for the last couple of years, has been pretty successful at towing this tricky line between, not upsetting the Republican base too much, but also not making it very clear there's big distance and huge daylight between him and Donald Trump. And then you have Jay Gonzalez, who just doesn't have name recognition. I mean, that's been one of his big challenges from the start. He doesn't have name recognition. He doesn't seem to have the money to get that name recognition.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about the governor's race and maybe a couple of other topics, too, when we continue our conversation with Joanna Weiss and Matt Murphy in just a moment. Please stay with us.